On tonight, guys. This is David Peck from Orlando, Florida, better known as Dpeck100. There's a really cool wrestling convention coming up in a few weeks in North Carolina called WrestleCade. And so, anyway, there's a guy on the PSA message boards that got in touch with me, and we had done some things in the past. And so, anyway, he's going to be going to get some signatures. I checked online, and I tell you what, it looks like this is going to be a heavily attended convention because most of the ticket packages appear to be sold out. Anyway, with his ticket package, he's able to get some autographs, and so we worked an arrangement where he's going to have a very similar stack of cards, and it's going to be interesting to see how many of these come back signed. I just don't know what kind of lines he's going to go through, how all that's going to shake out. But he's coming equipped, and so I thought it'd be cool to chronicle this because, we've got some sweet wrestling cards here that are going to get signed and stuff that, doesn't really get showcased too much that should. We're going to start with the 1982 Wrestling All-Star Series B. This is the Greg Valentine card, and what makes these cards, in my mind, so unique is they use photos from, many years prior in some cases, to when the cards were made. And so this is a photo of Greg Valentine from somewhere around 1974. It showed up in magazines in 1975 and 76, but I really think it's a little bit before that. And so anyway, this is a 1982 card with a incredibly young Greg Valentine. Very cool. Next, we're moving on to the Tony Atlas card. And in 1982 and certainly in the late 70s, Tony Atlas had arguably the best body in wrestling. I mean, this guy was just a natural, huge muscular guy. When I say natural, I don't know if he was natural, but I just mean, you can't fake that kind of athleticism. If you've got a guy that's on tons and tons of steroids, and you mix it with a guy that's got incredible athleticism, you obviously get explosive results, and Tony Atlas was an explosive athlete. So what I think is pretty cool, though, at this stage is, Tony Atlas, even in his 50s, has massive arms. I mean, they're well over 20 inches. Next, we're moving to Rick Steiner. This is a cool card because in 1988, the UWF, which was basically part of Cowboy, Bill Watts, he had basically owned the Mid-South territory, and in a bid to go national in 1986, he went into the UWF. So anyway, Rick Steiner, he got his start there, and when UWF and Jim Crockett Promotions merged, some of their stars showed up on these trading cards that were made in 1988. So anyway, as you can see, Rick Steiner was a bulldog. I mean, this guy was a legitimate college wrestler. So this could turn out to be a cool card. Apparently, he's doing real estate in Atlanta, is what I've read online. So next, we have the Masked Superstar. Now, I never saw this guy wrestle, but I did see him wrestle in his second act or major act, as he was in Demolition. And so this guy lives in Atlanta now, and some of the shows I go up to, like right up the street on the Fern Creek Armory, he'll still wrestle from time to time. And I have yet to see him, but he has in the past. Next, we've got Nikita Koloff. Now, this right here, I don't really think does him justice because this is probably taken late 87, early 88. When this guy first showed up in 86, and I just learned this, as time has gone on, he was friends with the Road Warriors, and it turned out that Jim Crockett wanted to have a Russian that was just a beast, because when you looked at guys like Road Warrior Hawk, I mean, to have a dude in the ring with him, and then you're going to compare muscles, I mean, he needed to be thick. So anyway, they brought this guy in, and he never really made it huge in wrestling for a long period of time, but he definitely was a force in 1986. Next, we've got Ivan Koloff. This guy has been in wrestling for a long, long time. This is when he was teaming up with actually Nikita. This is from the 1988 Wonderama set. I'm actually more interested in getting his 1982 Wrestling All-Star Series A card signed. The Ivan Koloff card is one of the cards where there are no 10s, at least at this time. Not a lot of 9s. It comes off centered a lot. And so anyway, but this is a great shot. This is from sometime in the early 70s, even maybe as late as 68. Next, we're moving to the 1985 Wrestling All-Stars Kevin Sullivan. Now, I grew up and have lived my entire life in Orlando, Florida. And so in the mid-'80s, championship wrestling from Florida was huge. And so anyway, we would get it on the free TV. And, you know, they were headquartered out of Tampa. But Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, any of the mega markets in Florida not only had it on TV, but, you know, these guys would tour. So anyway, in 1985, and probably in 84 too, Kevin Sullivan was this satanic guy. And, you know, at that time, you know, the Bible Belt religion was huge. And so, you know, we were going to church at the time, and, you know, my mom just said, no, this thing's got to go. And so we'd get home, and all of a sudden we're watching wrestling, and we had to turn the TV off, and we were going crazy. But anyway, Kevin Sullivan was the guy. Next, you've got the 1983 Wrestling All-Stars Hacksaw Duggan. This is from when he was in Mid-South. And, you know, some of Jim Duggan's best work is from early in his career when he sort of became a star, because he was a big body. He got the crowd going. And, you know, he good look. And a very, you know, wrestling's about getting crowd reaction. And, you know, Hacksaw Duggan did. This is a tough card in high grade. There are 2 of these in a 10. Matter of fact, one is on eBay right now, and it's one of the cards I do not own. I only have 9s. Next, we've got Jake the Snake Roberts. You know, Jake the Snake is a huge star in wrestling. And I tell you, you know, after collecting memorabilia here for a while, you know, you get a feel for the type of fan base that some of these guys have. And, you know, Jake Roberts has got a pretty big fan base. So this is the 83 Wrestling All-Stars. This is a very young Jake Roberts. You know, he wrestled in lots of the territories, and, you know, he's got some good footage online, and obviously was a huge star in the WWF. When he brought out Damien the Snake, I mean, I don't know anybody that wasn't scared. Next, we've got the Rock and Roll Express. Now, this is a pretty sweet card, because these guys were the teeny bopper heroes of wrestling in 84 and into 85. I mean, these guys were drawing insane numbers. They would go into towns that would do a couple $1,000s of revenue and do 40,000 in a night. I mean, it was almost like the Backstreet Boys or Justin Bieber, but they were wrestlers. So you've got Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton. This is their best card as the Rock and Roll Express, which is really the pinnacle of these guys' careers. So I think this would be a sweet card to have both signatures on, and I'm hoping that works out. Next, you've got Ricky Morton's single card from the 1983 Wrestling All-Stars. He was in a different tag team at the time with a guy named Ken Lucas here, who's on another card. But anyway, you know, Ricky Morton, as I said before, I mean, this guy was really popular with the chicks for a time. In 86, he had a great run with Ric Flair basically making fun of him, but you know, he was on TV all the time. Next, we got Tully Blanchard. And Tully Blanchard is one of the original members of the Four Horsemen. And I tell you what, as a kid, I would have never appreciated it, but a guy like this in 1986 was just living on top of the world. Those promos and vignettes that these guys would film, you know, they were getting to go out and make it happen. And that was a good time, obviously. So what's really sweet about the Tully Blanchard card is this card's really tough and high grade. It's a picture of him with actually Gino Hernandez at the time as, you know, tag team champions. I think it's in Southwest Championship Wrestling. But anyway, awesome card of Tully Blanchard. I'm hoping that I can maybe get 2 of these. We'll see. Time will tell. Next, we move to Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page has to be considered, if not the top draw at the show, one of the top draws, because this guy is really doing some great things right now. I mean, his DDP yoga has helped a lot of people. I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. This is a guy that really was able to take control of his life and make things happen. He actually got a start, since I told you earlier, from Orlando. His first gig was basically color commentary and jobber status in Orlando and Tampa and Florida markets and stuff. And so anyway, I've known Diamond Dallas Page from probably 1986 or 87. And anyway, this is a glossy card. This is from the 1992 WCW Topps. This is a European released issue. It's actually a tough card in high grade. I got a lot of sets and really only had a couple of them that would grade mint. Anyway, we'll see what happens with Diamond Dallas Page. Next, and it looks like our final card, is Jimmy Valiant. This guy, the Boogie Woogie Man, was huge in wrestling. He was said to be from New York. He came dancing to wild music and all kinds of wild antics. And so anyway, this is obviously a picture early in his career. The lighting is very similar to the lighting on the Greg Valentine that we saw earlier. So I would suspect that the photos are probably taken in a similar time frame because, a lot of the guys back in the day, number one, would be shot the same, and number two, would want to be shot the same. So anyway, regardless, this is a cool card. This is actually one of the toughest cards from the 82B in high grade. But anyway, hopefully we get these signed. I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully Ben from the message boards has a great time. It looks like they've got a tremendous lineup. As I said before, it looks like the show is not quite sold out, but close, which, there's still a few weeks to go. So anyway, I'm going to be shipping these off to him. He's going to get some of his signed, and we'll see what happens.